In the year 530 BCE, somewhere along the windswept banks of the Daria River, far beyond the known edges of the civilized world, a king lay dying. His blood soaked into foreign soil. His breath came shallow beneath a sky he had conquered but never truly owned. This was not how empires were supposed to end. Not for him. Not for the man who had toppled Babylon without a single siege tower, who had freed enslaved peoples and rewritten the rules of conquest itself. Yet here, in this desolate borderland, Cyrus the Great, architect of the largest empire the world had ever seen, met mortality like any other man. But the question that haunts history is not how he died. It is how a shepherd's son from an obscure mountain kingdom transformed himself into the liberator of nations, the king of kings, the man whose legacy would echo through Alexander, through Rome, through every conqueror who followed. To understand the answer, we must journey back to where it all began, to a world of blood feuds and mountain fortresses, to a boy born into prophecy and violence, destined to reshape the ancient world. The land of Persia, nestled in the rugged highlands of what is now southern Iran, was not a place of grandeur in the mid-6th century BCE. It was a vassal territory, a subordinate realm paying tribute to the Median Empire, the dominant power that controlled the Iranian plateau and stretched its influence from Anatolia to the borders of India. The Persians were a pastoral people, hardy and resourceful, their identity forged in the harsh terrain of the Zagros Mountains. They raised horses, tended flocks, and maintained a warrior culture that valued honor, horsemanship, and loyalty above all else. Into this world, around 600 or 590 BCE, Cyrus was born, though the exact year remains lost to the shadows of antiquity. His father was Cambyses I, a minor king of Anshan, a small Persian kingdom. His mother, Mandane, was reportedly a Median princess, daughter of Astyages, the king of the Medes. This lineage, blending Persian blood with Median royalty, would become both his birthright and his burden. Legend, as it so often does, quickly overtook fact. The Greek historian Herodotus, writing more than a century later, recorded a tale that became inseparable from Cyrus's origin. According to this account, Astyages dreamed that his daughter would give birth to a son who would overthrow him. Terrified by this prophecy, the Median king ordered the infant Cyrus to be killed. But the appointed executioner, a nobleman named Harpagus, could not bring himself to commit the act. Instead, he gave the child to a shepherd named Mithridates, who raised Cyrus as his own son among the mountains. Years later, the boy's royal bearing and natural leadership supposedly revealed his true identity. Whether this tale holds any truth or is merely a narrative device, echoing similar legends of Moses, Oedipus, and Romulus, remains uncertain. What is certain is that Cyrus emerged from obscurity not as a predestined hero, but as a young ruler who understood something his contemporaries did not: that power in the ancient world need not rely solely on terror. By the time Cyrus assumed leadership of Anshan around 559 BCE, the geopolitical landscape of the Near East had reached a fragile equilibrium. For great powers dominated the known world. To the east, the Median Empire under Astyages controlled the Iranian plateau and exerted hegemony over the Persian territories. To the west, the Kingdom of Lydia, ruled by the fabulously wealthy Croesus, commanded Anatolia and possessed gold reserves that made it a byword for riches. Further west still, the declining but still formidable Babylonian Empire held Mesopotamia, the ancient cradle of civilization. And to the southwest, Egypt under the Saite dynasty maintained its independence and cultural prestige. Each watched the others with suspicion. Each believed the balance would hold. None anticipated the storm gathering in the Persian highlands. Cyrus's first move was not military, but political. He began consolidating power among the Persian tribes, uniting the fragmented clans under his leadership. He cultivated loyalty not through fear, but through a radical concept: respect for local customs and autonomy within a larger framework. This was not the typical model of ancient kingship, which relied on subjugation and tribute extracted through violence. Cyrus seemed to grasp an essential truth about empire building that would define his entire career. People would fight harder for a king who honored them than for one who merely enslaved them. But respect alone would not be enough. To break free from Median domination, he would need to gamble everything. The rebellion came around 553 BCE. The exact details remain murky, obscured by conflicting sources and propaganda from multiple sides. What is clear is that Cyrus openly defied his Median overlords, refusing tribute and rallying the Persian nobility to his cause. Astyages, his grandfather by legend, or perhaps merely his overlord by politics, mobilized the Median army to crush this upstart vassal. The Median forces vastly outnumbered the Persians. By every rational calculation, Cyrus should have been destroyed. But Cyrus possessed something beyond numbers. He possessed timing and insight into human nature. When the armies met in battle, key Median generals, including reportedly Harpagus himself, defected to Cyrus's side. Whether this was due to long-simmering resentments against Astyages' tyrannical rule, or perhaps Cyrus's own careful cultivation of disaffected Median nobles, the result was catastrophic for the Median king. His army collapsed, his capital, Ecbatana, fell, and Cyrus, the rebel vassal, suddenly found himself master of the Median Empire. The year was approximately 550 BCE, and everything had changed. The Achaemenid Persian Empire was born, though Cyrus did not yet use that title. What he did instead would set the pattern for his entire reign. Rather than destroying Ecbatana, he preserved it. Rather than executing Median nobles, he incorporated them into his administration. Rather than imposing Persian culture on his new subjects, he presented himself as the legitimate successor to the Median kings, maintaining their institutions while quietly shifting power to Persian hands. This was not weakness. This was calculation of the highest order. Cyrus understood that the real challenge of empire was not conquest but governance, and that a conquered people left with dignity might become allies rather than perpetual rebels. But the other great powers were watching. In Lydia, King Croesus saw opportunity in upheaval. The sudden collapse of Media had disrupted the balance, and the Lydian king calculated that this Persian upstart could be crushed before he consolidated his gains. Croesus consulted the oracle at Delphi, asking whether he should attack Persia. The oracle's famous response came: if Croesus crossed the Halys River, a great empire would fall. Croesus interpreted this as a guarantee of victory. It was his first mistake. In 547 BCE, Croesus invaded Persian territory, crossing the Halys River with confidence. The initial battles were inconclusive, and as winter approached, Croesus withdrew to Sardis, his capital, assuming the campaigning season had ended, and that Cyrus would similarly retreat to consolidate. This was his second mistake. Cyrus did not follow the conventions. Instead of withdrawing, he pursued Croesus through the winter, appearing before the walls of Sardis while the Lydian king was still demobilizing his army. The siege that followed exposed another dimension of Cyrus's genius. Sardis sat atop a seemingly impregnable acropolis, its walls perched on steep cliffs. A conventional siege could take years, but Cyrus offered rewards to any soldier who could find a way up the cliffs. According to accounts, a Persian soldier observed a Lydian defender accidentally drop his helmet over the wall, then climb down a hidden path to retrieve it. That night, Persian forces scaled the cliff along that same route. Sardis fell, Croesus was captured, and the great empire that fell was not Persia, but Lydia. Once again, Cyrus defied expectations. Croesus, expecting execution, was reportedly spared and even kept as an advisor. The Lydian cities were incorporated into the empire, their Greek populations now subjects of the Persian king. Cyrus appointed Persian satraps, governors, to oversee these territories, but maintained local administration and customs. The wealth of Lydia, its legendary gold, flowed into Persian coffers, transforming Cyrus from a regional power into a king of immense resources. Yet even as he absorbed Lydia, his attention was already turning eastward and southward, toward the greatest prize of all, Babylon. The Babylonian Empire, by the mid-6th century BCE, was a civilization in decline, but decline is not synonymous with weakness. Its capital remained the largest and most magnificent city in the world, protected by walls so massive that chariot races were held atop them. The Ishtar Gate gleamed with glazed blue tiles depicting lions and dragons. The Hanging Gardens, if they existed, symbolized a wealth and engineering prowess that dwarfed anything the Persians had yet achieved. But Babylon's strength was crumbling from within. Its king, Nabonidus, was an enigma, a religious reformer obsessed with the moon god Sin, who had alienated the powerful priesthood of Marduk, Babylon's patron deity. Nabonidus spent years away from Babylon, residing in the Arabian oasis of Tamar, leaving governance to his son Belshazzar. The population, the priests, and the nobility all simmered with resentment. Cyrus, ever the strategist, recognized that the key to Babylon was not military might, but propaganda and political theater. Before he moved against Babylon, Cyrus spent years consolidating his eastern frontiers, campaigning in regions that would later be known as Bactria and Sogdiana. These campaigns are poorly documented, but they served a crucial purpose. They secured his rear and ensured that no threat could emerge while he focused on Mesopotamia. By 539 BCE, Cyrus was ready. He marched his armies into Babylonian territory, but the campaign was unlike any that had come before. Cyrus presented himself not as a conqueror, but as a liberator, sent by Marduk himself to restore proper worship and order to Babylon. He circulated propaganda, emphasizing Nabonidus's impiety and his own piety. When the armies met at Opis on the Tigris River, the Babylonian forces were defeated, but what happened next was extraordinary. Babylon itself opened its gates without a fight. Whether through bribery, defection, or genuine popular support, Cyrus entered the greatest city of the ancient world, not as a destroyer, but as a welcomed deliverer. The contrast with Assyrian or other ancient conquests could not have been starker. There was no mass slaughter, no burning of temples, no enslavement of populations. Instead, Cyrus issued a declaration, preserved on what is now known as the Cyrus Cylinder, a clay document discovered in the ruins of Babylon in 1879. In it, Cyrus proclaimed himself chosen by Marduk, protector of Babylon, restorer of shrines, and liberator of oppressed peoples. He ordered that displaced populations, including the Jews exiled by Nebuchadnezzar decades earlier, be allowed to return to their homelands and rebuild their temples. He presented himself not as a foreign tyrant, but as the legitimate king of Babylon, heir to its ancient traditions. This was propaganda, certainly, but it was propaganda rooted in a genuinely different approach to empire. The Hebrew Bible celebrates Cyrus as God's anointed, the only Gentile given that honor. The prophet Isaiah, writing either during or shortly after these events, called Cyrus the Lord's shepherd and Messiah, anointed one, sent to free the Jewish people. For the Jews, Cyrus became a figure of almost mythic benevolence, the king who ended the Babylonian captivity and allowed them to return to Jerusalem and rebuild the temple. This was not merely altruism, it was strategic brilliance. By allowing conquered peoples their cultural and religious autonomy, Cyrus transformed potential rebels into grateful subjects. He understood that ideology and identity could be more powerful tools than swords. Yet even as he reached the zenith of his power, questions lingered. Who was this man truly? Ancient sources give us contradictory portraits. Herodotus presents him as a noble conqueror who nonetheless met a violent end. Xenophon, in his semi-fictional Cyropedia, portrays him as an ideal philosopher king, a model of virtue and wisdom. Later Persian sources, filtered through centuries of Zoroastrian and Islamic tradition, remember him as a legendary hero. But beneath the legends, certain patterns emerge. Cyrus was pragmatic, adaptable, and willing to embrace local traditions when it served his interests. He was a risk-taker who understood when to strike and when to wait. He cultivated loyalty through respect rather than fear, but he was no pacifist. His enemies who resisted were crushed without mercy. He was a man of contradictions, capable of both magnanimity and ruthlessness, a liberator who nonetheless built an empire through conquest. After securing Babylon, Cyrus turned his attention to the empire's vast frontiers. The Achaemenid realm now stretched from the Aegean Sea to the Hindu Kush, from the steppes of Central Asia to the borders of Egypt. It was the largest contiguous empire the world had yet seen, encompassing dozens of peoples, languages, and cultures. Administering such a domain required innovation. Cyrus developed the satrapy system, dividing the empire into provinces governed by appointed satraps who wielded significant autonomy, but were monitored by royal inspectors, known as the eyes and ears of the king. He began construction of a road network that would later become the famous Royal Road, facilitating communication and military movement across thousands of miles. He standardized certain administrative practices while allowing local governance to continue. The empire was diverse by design, not accident. But the eastern frontiers remained unstable. The nomadic peoples of the steppes, Scythians, Masojte, and others, recognized no king and valued mobility over settlement. They raided Persian territory, threatening trade routes and settlements. Cyrus, now in his 60s or perhaps 70s, decided to personally lead a campaign to secure these frontiers once and for all. It would be his final journey. The accounts of Cyrus's last campaign are fragmentary and contradictory. Herodotus places him fighting against the Masojte, a nomadic confederation led by a queen named Tomarus. According to this version, Cyrus initially defeated a force led by Tomarus' son through deception, leaving behind a camp stocked with wine. The inexperienced nomads, unaccustomed to alcohol, became drunk and were slaughtered. Enraged, Queen Tomarus challenged Cyrus to open battle, vowing to give him his fill of blood. In the battle that followed, the Persian army was destroyed and Cyrus himself was killed. Tomarus supposedly retrieved his body and plunged his severed head into a wineskin filled with blood, fulfilling her promise. Other sources place his death differently, perhaps against the Dohi, or in a siege, or from illness. The truth is lost. What remains is the image of a great king dying far from home, his blood mingling with the dust of some forgotten battlefield, his empire left without his guiding hand. His body was returned to Persis, to a tomb constructed in Pasargadae, the city he had founded as his capital. The tomb still stands today, a simple, elegant structure of massive stone blocks, utterly devoid of ornamentation. No grand sculptures, no elaborate reliefs, no boastful inscriptions listing his conquests. Just a stone house for the dead, bearing an inscription that Alexander the Great supposedly read when he visited centuries later. "O man, whoever you are and wherever you come from, for I know you will come, I am Cyrus, who won the Persians their empire. Do not therefore begrudge me this bit of earth that covers my body." Whether these were truly Cyrus's words or a later invention, they capture something essential about his legacy. A claim not to divinity but to achievement, a request not for worship but for remembrance. His son Cambyses II succeeded him, but lacked his father's political genius. Cambyses conquered Egypt but ruled with cruelty, alienating his subjects and dying under mysterious circumstances during a rebellion. It would fall to Darius, a distant relative, to stabilize the empire and expand it to its greatest extent. But Darius built on foundations Cyrus had laid. The administrative structures, the tolerance for diversity, the model of a multi-ethnic empire bound by efficient governance rather than cultural homogeneity. These were Cyrus's innovations, and they would shape not only the Persian Empire, but every major empire that followed. So what are we to make of Cyrus the Great? Was he truly the enlightened liberator celebrated in the Hebrew Bible and the Cyrus cylinder? Or was he simply a brilliant propagandist who understood that tolerance was more efficient than terror? The answer is almost certainly both. Cyrus was a product of his time, an age of brutal conquest and empire building. Yet he transcended that age by recognizing that sustainable power required more than military victory. He grasped that identity and belief were forces as powerful as armies, and that by respecting them, he could harness them. This was not idealism, but pragmatism elevated to genius. His legacy rippled through history in ways he could never have imagined. Alexander the Great studied his tactics and visited his tomb with reverence. The Romans borrowed Persian administrative models. The concept of a multi-ethnic empire governed through local autonomy influenced Byzantine, Islamic, Mongol, and even modern imperial systems. The Cyrus cylinder, though primarily a piece of royal propaganda, has been invoked in modern times as an early declaration of human rights, though this interpretation is disputed by scholars. Iran today venerates him as the father of the nation, a symbol of Persian greatness predating Islam. The contradictions and debates surrounding his memory are themselves testament to his significance. He remains a figure contested, reimagined, and invoked across millennia and cultures. What is undeniable is that Cyrus transformed the ancient world. He proved that empires could be built without relying solely on mass terror, that conquered peoples could be integrated rather than merely subjugated, that propaganda and respect could be as effective as swords and chains. He was not a saint. Ancient kingship allowed for no saints. He killed when necessary, conquered when opportunity arose, and pursued power with single-minded determination. But within those constraints, he operated differently than his predecessors, and that difference changed the calculus of empire. On the steppes where he fell, the wind still blows across empty grasslands. In Pasargadae, his tomb stands silent, visited by tourists and pilgrims who come to pay homage to a king dead for 2.5 millennia. In Jerusalem, in the Hebrew scriptures, his name is still honored. In Iran, children learn his story as the foundation of their national identity. In the museums of London and Tehran, the Cyrus cylinder is displayed as a treasure of world heritage. And in the language of power and statecraft, in the endless debates about how to govern diverse populations and build lasting institutions, his shadow still looms. Cyrus the Great was a shepherd's son who became a king of kings, a rebel who founded a dynasty, a conqueror who styled himself a liberator. He was a man of contradictions who understood that power without legitimacy is brittle, that force without consent is temporary, that empires built on rubble do not endure. He was not perfect, not faultless, not the legend that later ages would construct. He was something more interesting, a human being who operated at the hinge of history, who saw possibilities his contemporaries missed, who gambled everything, and for a time, won it all. The question is not whether he deserves the title great. History has already answered that. The question is what that greatness truly meant, and what it cost, and whether the world he made was better than the one he destroyed. Those questions remain unanswered, echoing across the centuries, as relevant now as they were when his body was laid to rest in that simple stone tomb, beneath the Persian sky, in a city that has long since crumbled to dust.